Good morning. You're watching Much Ado About Something, and I'm Donna. Well, I'm in the garden this morning, and I'm assessing the many tasks that need to be done in the garden on a daily basis, or a weekly basis, or maybe just once a season. But every day I get out here that I can, and as I'm gardening, I'm in the planning stage. I'm assessing here, and that's an ongoing task. And I get out here to see what I can do to improve this garden, to enhance my investment of money that I have in plants and the materials that go in here, so that I can get the most enjoyment out of it. And it sounds complicated, but really it's an easy thing to do. I've got a little list of just 8 things I think here that I'm concentrating on today. They're just simple things that you can do in just a matter of minutes. And it's a plan that'll help guide you and help you keep you on track to what you expect out of your garden. The first thing on my list is weeding. You know, it's an ongoing, continual thing. I never got this bed fully weeded the way I wanted to before the seasons caught up with me. But right here in my foxglove, you can see I've got a weed that's just coming right up in the middle of it that has got to come out. If it stays too long, it'll go to seed, and that'll just be more weeds. Weeding is something that needs to be done all through the gardening season, from the beginning all the way through, all the way to the end. There'll always be weeding that needs to be done. So my first task at hand is weeding. My second task is just deadheading. As you can see on this foxglove, there are blooms down here at the bottom that they're spent. They're not looking good anymore. They're faded, they're turning brown. And what I do is just go ahead and deadhead those spent flowers off of whatever plant it is. Of course, I'm going to let these foxgloves go to seed this year so that I can collect them. But in the meantime, I'm just going to go ahead and deadhead any flowers that are looking brown and not attractive. They're not in their peak. I'm just going to go ahead and deadhead those off so that the plant that's left will have more energy to go into the seed making process and the blooms that are already there. Number 3 task is separating and dividing plants that needs to be repotted or rerooted, such as this beautiful lily or amaryllis that I have here. I bought this from a lady down the street when she was having a plant sale. I gave just a few dollars for one of these bulbs. There's actually bulbs here under the ground. Well, as you can see, it's full and beautiful. Well, I'm going to increase the impact of this beautiful plant by digging this whole clump of bulbs that I have here and dividing those out. There's probably 6 or 7 bulbs there, and I'm going to divide those and make plans in my garden of where I'm going to put those. Of course, I'm not going to divide them while they're blooming. I'll wait until after their bloom is gone, and probably in the fall is when I'll divide these, but now is when I'm making the notes that these need to be divided, so that when they come up next spring, I'll know they're in the right place and that they're given the most room that they can to be as beautiful as they can be. The same goes with this beautiful plant, which is grown in a container. I absolutely love this flower. I know it's some type of begonia, but it's done so well here, but I think it's overgrown its pot and it's time for it to be divided. Last year I took a cutting, it's here in the middle of this container, It's very easily rooted, and so I'll be separating this large container and making plans of where to put those plants. So it's one of the ones that'll need to be separated. And here, number 4 task is assessing where to plant according to the adjusted needs of a plant. And this plant, this little fern that is so beautiful, is struggling because it's just getting burned up in the sun. It needs at least partial shade. When I had a big tree here in the middle of the yard, this fern had plenty of shade. But now that we've cut that tree down, this is struggling. And because I'm out here assessing my plants and I know what I need to do, I know that I need to cut that, to dig that up and replant that in a more shady area. So that's something I'm going to do. I don't want to lose this. It's got such a pretty fronds, you know, on it. It's a really pretty plant. I don't want to burn it up out here in the full sun. Well, number 5 is assessing herbs, plants that I plan to harvest in the future. You know, if I want to harvest in the future, I have to make the plans to make sure I have these plants, and these plants are where they need to be and are producing here in the summer. So this echinacea, which is a really good herb for the immune system, I make tea from this plant. I use every part of it. I use the bloom, the leaf, and the root. And I make teas and tinctures and oil infusions out of this plant. And so to be sure that I have enough plant to do all that with, I have to assess this plant and make sure that it's doing well, that it's in the right place, that it's getting what it needs, that I'm giving it its best opportunity to flower and to produce so that I'll have something to harvest when it comes time to do that. The number 6 task is I have a bird bath placement that I'm making a change here. If you remember on one of my previous videos, I showed you where the bird bath was at and how I love the little vine growing up at the Virginia creeper that was growing up. It was right here. But I'm going to have to move the bird bath that I had in the back because it's so heavy. It's a 2-piece bird bath, concrete bird bath, and it's extremely heavy. So I didn't want to leave that in the backyard where the kids play because this top comes off. The top's still in the wheelbarrow. I had to move them up here up front. But because these 2 pieces are really heavy, it could really hurt a little toe or hurt a little foot or anything if one of the kids were playing on it and climbing on this thing and it slid off, the top slid off, it would hurt them. So I'm putting this concrete bird bath over here where I had this metal bird bath. I'm exchanging those because the children very rarely ever get into this garden over here, and it's just a safer place to put that big, heavier bird bath. A safer place, and that is that was number 6, our number 6 task. That's an ongoing thing, the safety. You know, you want your garden to be beautiful, but it also has to be safe for everybody that enjoys it. So this is a safer garden bird bath ornament placement for me and for my family, is to just put something that's heavier here, inaccessible to the kids. And the number 7th task that I'm looking at, that I'm accessing in the garden today, is to check the containers and make sure they're doing well where they're placed. Make sure they're not getting too much sun or too much water, and that they do look good where I've put them, and that's where I want them to be, so that I can make any adjustments to those that I need to make. Either give them more water or less water, or put them in a place where they have more space or more prominent. So that's one of the things that I'm doing today. This little planting seems to be struggling some. These impatiens, they're probably getting too much sun. They look a little beat down. I may work in some begonias that can take more of the full sun. I think I'm going to work some begonias in along with that little bucket that looks like it's spilling out, just to add more interest and to help shade those little impatiens a little bit. But for the most part, they're looking good. And then of course over here, I have a lot of plants that are going to need to be removed. Right here is a pin oak from the neighbor's pin oak tree that's growing up. Well, it certainly can't stay here because this is not where we need a tree. And then we have this elderberry. Donald's already moved several of these elderberry plants. So our number 8 is assessing removal of plants. Looking at things that can't stay where they're at. We've got the parent elderberry tree here that we'll be harvesting off of. It's 3 years old. And the first year we got one little bunch of elderberries. The second year we got probably 3 times as many. And this year we're expecting a good harvest on this elderberry plant bush. But here's another plant. We've already got several of them. Here are several that Donald's dug up already. Right here in these 2 little buckets. He dug these 2 plants up in a previous video. And now sprouting in assessing this garden, I see that there are others here that are coming off of the elderberry, and this is how they spread by root like this. And I can see 2 that need to come up. This one and this one here that's bigger. They both need to be dug up and repotted and moved to another place or regifted. I'm going to take some of the ones that we moved and plant them along the chicken pen because where the chicken yard is, chickens love to peck these, and they're good antibacterial properties to this plant that are beneficial to those chickens. So I'll be removing these plants that are not wanted here and putting them in a more beneficial area. And of course you cannot go through your garden and not enjoy the beauty that you see. You just have to take the time to appreciate all the lovely, lovely plants and blooms and beauty. Thank you for joining me today in assessing the garden and sharing these 9 tasks with you that I have to get out here and do today to make sure that I get the optimal benefits from my garden, that I make most of the money that I've put into them and the time and the energy, and that I'm enjoying it to its fullest. Like always, until next time.